Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
All right, we're back to talk about podcasts.
Yes.
Alcohol.
Yes.
Jobs.
Yes.
Quantum computers.
This is almost all about booze and alcohol.
Reputations.
So we got some issues.
Can you tell VARTEC's coming? Actually, this episode is going to release the week we've come back from, the week of VARTECH. Just, days after VARTECH ended, actually.
There you go.
But we're recording this a little bit ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So, maybe alcohol's on our minds because, we got to
just be some trends, I think, right?
we got to drink to survive and get through that time period. Hey, it's another Tech Bytes episode where we just do a little digging and diving into interesting topics and stories and stuff that we just feel like chatting about.
The virtual water cooler. That's what this is all about, right?
Cooler.
You're at the water cooler again. Maybe it's 2 days a week. Maybe it's 3 days a week.
But are you, though? Like, I still don't feel like I ever really...
I go to the water cooler.
I don't feel like I don't go to the water cooler to hang out and talk to people that much.
It's a coffee machine
I just fill up my water and go about my day.
I see. Yeah.
Which, by the way, our water cooler is a little on the lukewarm side.
Well, you got to put the ice in it, dude.
Yeah, but if I'm trying to fill a bottle, that doesn't help me.
That doesn't help at all.
I can't get the ice in there.
But it's got the soft crush ice. It's the best ice in the world.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe I need to start bringing my actual cup.
100% you do.
Let's just riff on office upgrades and how to take care of ourselves in the office. Forget the rest of the episode. Just talking about that. All right. So those are our topics today. We'll do a little What's Tech Connected with you as well. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, let's get into it, Dean. We've bantered around some topics. We've got 6 stories we want to do today.
Whoosh.
You're up first with a topic about America's top podcasts.
Well, I mean, here we are. We are a podcast, right? So I felt I felt it important to analyze ourselves versus what other top-ranked podcasts are out there.
Podcast thyself.
Yeah. So some really good information out there, and some of this reinforces what we have built here on our podcast.
That's true.
And so that's
we exist for a reason.
That's right. So there's a survey out there. They kind of dove into what are the top ranked podcasts and how do you get there, kind of a thing. And just some of the call outs there. About a quarter of top ranked podcasts are about true crime.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. I mean,
it checks out though.
It does. I mean, I talked to my middle daughter. She's 21. She's like, yeah, I do podcasts and stuff like that. I'm like, what? True crime. Yeah. That's all she listens to is true crime stuff. Yeah. It's like, so I've listened to a couple. Have you heard any of these?
Just Serial's the only one that I ever got into because, I mean, everybody got into Serial. Yeah. And I've listened to some of their breakout projects that are true crime focused, but not, I know there's a plethora of other ones out there and I'm sure I would enjoy them, but I listen to enough podcasts, other stuff. Well, I just haven't really touched on it.
Apparently 24% of all podcasts are true crime.
Which is
crime related.
Which is fascinating to me because you would think there would be a lot to go into making those, but
I don't know. I think the good ones are well produced.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh, yeah,
it's an auditory story,
but it's also one of those things that I think that anybody can just do as long as you just do some research and have a conversation about it. And maybe you can talk to some folks.
And here's the fact: there's an endless supply. Unfortunately, there's always crime going on, deaths, murders. Things of that nature. We could do a true crime Cincinnati and have an endless supply.
I guarantee you go search for that. It probably is out there.
So maybe we do need to tweak our format. If we want to increase our listeners, we got to weave in a true crime. Can you work on that, John?
And that's when you use the barcode scanner to bludgeon him to death.
That's right.
Next on TEConnect After Dark.
It beats going to the second most popular, which is politics and government. I mean, there you have to be all in on stuff like that to either listen to it or partake in something like that. A little bit surprised there at the next one, self-help and relationship actually ranked number 4 in the most popular. So I guess people are tuning in for self-help and relationship type.
I can
stuff.
see that too. Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, I would have thought sports, which is below that, would have been a lot higher.
That's true. I wonder if the self-help stuff though, if that includes a lot of how-tos and.
Oh, you think? Yeah,
maybe I don't know. I don't know if it's all necessarily psychology type stuff or whatever. Could be. I don't know, but
that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what if you're looking at your list of podcasts, what's going to be at the top of your list of like the most common type that you're listening to?
Man, that's a good science.
Oh,
which lands pretty low on here. Money, like I NPR's. What is that? Planet Money. Yeah, that's just like one of my go-tos.
Okay,
and it's not like I'm a money guy. It's just fascinating, right. And it's usually well produced type of thing. I don't. That's it. Story, a little, throw in a history piece here and there, that kind of thing, which all ranks here. An occasional Rogan. So I don't know where you classify him. Is it comedy? Is it?
I imagine
is it
entertainment,
politics?
pop culture,
is it entertainment, pop culture?
Yeah, that's a
go.
good point. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah. So I don't know. What about you?
So again, I don't do a lot of the true crime stuff. I do some politics stuff. I do have some politics podcasts to listen to. My predominant listening though is going to be under the entertainment pop culture.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the like TV rewatch podcast.
Yeah, right.
Watch a show and do a recap of it, or just shows that just talk about what's going on in nerdy pop culture stuff or whatever. Pop Culture Happy Hour, that was one of my first podcasts that I really latched onto early on. When after I did Serial and This American Life, like everybody does, I found Pop Culture Happy Hour, which is another NPR podcast. Where they just
This American Life, I got to do that one.
Oh man, that's good stuff.
Is it good stuff?
And it's one of those ones you can just pick up any episode anytime.
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Well produced. Whatever.
I mean. That was the podcast before podcasts.
I see.
That was because it was a weekly radio show on NPR for a long time. I remember, and I do remember listening to it like on a computer, like because they were one of the first to like load everything digitally to the web so that you could listen, on your computer. I remember doing that at like an old job where, if I was doing something meandering and droning or whatever, I just listened to episodes of that on, one after the other. And then, of course, became part of the podcast.
Went to their MySpace page and started listening to that.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Here's another thing, though. About half the top-ranked podcasts have video. So I know you complain coming out of the gate about the video portion of it, but 51% do have video. So when you look at the top-ranked podcasts, there are a variety of formats. 38% feature deep reporting or explaining a topic type of a thing. Roughly a quarter are interview. That's I would put us more in the interview kind of category, and 16 are around commentary. We already mentioned true crime as being one of the top-ranked ones. Now, here's another stat. Most top-ranked podcasts have a single host. So does that mean I need to exit stage left and you just take over here?
We'll talk later.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, if we want to be a major
whatever,
player,
I can't do this without you.
Apparently. Well, 58% have a single host. Oh, man. Now, Marco's going to love this unfortunate next one. Top-ranked podcasts tend to be less than an hour long. Which we generally are. I know he's raising his fist in victory over there. When you throw
in all the graphics and the ads and stuff or whatever, we might stretch a little over an hour sometimes.
Yes.
It's just because, again, it's the two host problem because we like to sit here and ramble a lot and talk too much. So,
And here's the last one. Many top-ranked podcasts turn to their audiences for financial support. So, do we need to start asking for?
We could start a Patreon or whatever,
Maybe we should start selling the T-shirts and making money off
that
our
is
swag.
What it is a lot because there are actually a couple podcasts that I actually do contribute to. I don't do it much, but there's a couple that I'm like, hey, you guys are so entertaining. I will happily
and you get
some money.
The backstage stuff.
Well, there's like bonus content.
Yeah, bonus content.
Like I think I've talked about this before. Some of my favorite podcasts are these guys that they do two podcasts called Greatest Generation and Greatest Trek, Star Trek stuff. And they have, if you're a paid subscriber to their network, you'll get a bonus feed access where it's honestly all the shows on the network do bonus content. So even if you're not listening to others, you get other stuff too. But with them, they do fun extra stuff. Like they have a recurring show called Factory Seconds where they go to the Cheesecake Factory and order random new stuff off the menu every time and just talk about how they felt about it. Nice. They're doing another one where they're rewatching some old episodes of Baywatch and talking about that.
Nice.
So it's stuff like that where I'm just like, I love listening to these guys. I love listening to their new shows every single week. And if paying them a little bit of money each month lets me
enables that good, you're good.
It keeps them one still doing this and gives me more of their content to listen to and laugh at.
Even better.
Happy to do that.
Fair enough. So. Well, I'm telling you, we got to maybe consider.
So what would our bonus content be then?
I don't know. What would it be? True crime?
Would we just or will we just go full bore into our nerd stuff and
Maybe.
We have our yearly Star Wars episode where we just be doing like nerdy stuff on a regular basis. Let's talk about this week's episode of Ahsoka.
There it is. Yes. So. Yeah. Something like that we need to consider.
All right. So, hey, if you're interested in that, let us know. I'm always asking you to let us know what you like about the show. If you want something extra on the side and you're willing to pay for it, let us know. It's going to be like one person. It's going to be like, I'll give you like 2 cents. All right, sure.
Oh, by the way, here's another thing we're doing right. Most top-ranked podcasts release at least once a week.
Okay.
Roughly once a week. That's 40% of them are doing that. So there you go.
You gotta stay in people's minds. You gotta stay in their feed.
Got to stay relevant. That's right. All right. All that being said, let's get to the real important stuff. Let's talk some beer.
Let's talk
some alcohol.
We've got back-to-back alcohol topics here that could not be more different, honestly, in a way. But mine will start off. We're talking about the best beer cities in the U.S. So
yes.
This was let's see, from realestatewitch.com, powered by Clover, I guess. Or is that Clever? I can't read. It's too small here on my screen. Anyway, we always like to say when we talk these best of, what's the criteria?
Yep, what's the criteria?
What's the background here? Here's the criteria they came up with a score.
I think this is pretty solid, by the way. Yeah.
They do breweries per capita.
Yep.
Average price of beer.
Yep.
Affordability of domestic beer and imported. Average Yelp rating of breweries, average Yelp rating of bars per capita, and a beer passion score based on Google Trends data.
Okay, now that's the one that I got to contest a little bit. Although they do
maybe a little intangible.
Yeah, they give it a pretty low weight. That's ×2, I guess, right? So but still, anytime you throw in the Google voodoo factor, it's like, oh, come on.
Honestly, having Yelp too is another one because there are certain people that just leave Yelp reviews for everything, absolutely. And there are people that just go about their day and live normal lives.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, let's get to this then. The number one beer city in America, according to this poll, is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
But number 2, Cincinnati, Ohio.
I am disgruntled. I hate losing to Pittsburgh. Period.
That's true.
This was really
feeds
disappointing.
Into the rivalry that we have with Pittsburgh.
I always imagined I thought I heard that Cincinnati was the best beer town. In people think what's the traditional one when you think beer town? To me, it would be like Milwaukee.
Maybe like Milwaukee or something. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
which is
beer town.
Number 3 on the list. Yeah, so they're right there.
But to have Cincinnati, I mean, we all around here know. Oh yeah, there's a lot of breweries.
The explosion of local breweries here in the last couple decades has been very impressive.
It's a good place to live, and there's a lot of breweries around here. But Pittsburgh squeaks us out.
Yeah, where they beat us is they have more breweries per 100,000 residents by a lot. Like we have Cincinnati's 1.7, they have 2.34. So apparently, you just stumble out of your house in Pittsburgh and you find a brewery.
Or your house might be a brewery.
That's also true. Where else did they end up beating us on? Let's see, not the income part. The Yelp rating was Yelp rating was lower.
Yeah.
The bar rating's lower. The passion score is honestly that's where the biggest part is. They have a 95.7 passion score versus a 78.8 for.
Come on now.
Maybe we're dampened a little bit because we also have a big bourbon culture here in the tri-state.
Oh, that's true.
Kentucky bourbon.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's where the passion is not as high on the beer side. But
that's
whatever.
a good point. No,
I don't necessarily buy that either. But fine. At least we're in the. Not just in the top 10, we're in the top 5, top 2 here on that.
Yep.
The rest of the top 10, again, Milwaukee was number 3, New Orleans, Denver, Louisville, Kentucky, so another fairly local to us, not that far off. Indianapolis, part of our tri-state here. Well, not the tri-state, but, literally part of the 3 states that make up the tri-state.
Yep.
Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Minneapolis. I do find it interesting that other than Denver, everything else is pretty much, Eastern, Northeastern, Southeastern,
excuse me, but 7 of these are what I would call in the Midwest.
Well, okay, I know.
What does that say about us Midwesterners?
I know. I'm saying maybe everything, practically everything here is.
Dude, 7 of the top 10 are in the Midwest.
East of the Mississippi.
And they're all within a day drive of where we're sitting right now.
So apparently we like beer a lot out here.
You know who doesn't like beer? If you live in LA.
Oh, yeah.
You're at the bottom of the list.
Bottom of the list, number 50, yeah.
LA and Riverside. What are they drinking out there? What are we doing?
Maybe they just like their hard liquor more,
Okay.
Mixed drinks and tequila. And,
or shall we say other forms of
that's true.
inebriation type of things.
Other ways to take the edge off there for sure. So, yeah. All right. So that's our top beer cities in the U.S. But let's pivot a little bit into America's relationship with alcohol. As if we didn't kind of tee that up already.
Yeah. Well, coming out of the pandemic, everyone was a foodie and everyone became a bartender, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. But, it is fascinating. So I stumbled across this, it's actually from Gallup. Research around Americans' relationship, if you will, with drinking alcohol. And, pretty good. Some of the story highlights 62% of U.S. adults drink alcohol. 62%, which is perhaps a little less than I thought it would be. But okay, 38%.
Bunch of teetotalers.
38% are abstain completely. Wow. So that, to me, that seemed a little, anyway. I would have put it like in the 90% drink and 10%.
Or at least in the like upper 70s, 80s, maybe low 80s, something like that.
Okay. But
you're right. It's a little skewed more than I would have expected.
20% of drinkers say they sometimes overindulge. So about 20% of the time of those drinkers.
That number is always unfortunately high, but it's, I know you may think 20% doesn't sound like a lot, but that's probably a lot more than it should be.
Well, and what does the word sometimes mean? And what does overindulge mean?
Is
it like, okay, you had one too many, you shouldn't drive, or you pass out, kind of a thing?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what are we talking about?
That's a good question.
Here?
How do you define that?
And what is sometimes?
For me,
is that once a week?
Yeah, for me, overindulge is like, I drank 3 beers instead of 2 tonight, and like I'm super tired now.
Yes. Well, see, I'm in the same boat as you are, but other people's tolerances are obviously much, much different.
Definitely.
But beer is still the most popular alcoholic drink.
Okay.
Liquor, battling wine for second place. But there are a couple of unique things. So there is, and go to it in the show notes and look at this one graph. Americans' use of alcohol, because they have it from 1939 all the way up to 2023. What's really fascinating here is it barely moves, if you ask me. Everything's between like 60 and 70%. I mean, there are some decades, like in the 70s and the 80s, apparently there was a lot of drinking going on.
Post-prohibition,
Well, it starts in 1939. You're right. And there is a little bit of a hockey stick coming up out of there.
We can drink again. Woo!
And it quickly dives back down into the high 50s.
Which looks like, am I seeing the low point was 1958?
Yes.
55%.
Yes. Which is a little curious. I don't know what happened.
I was trying
there.
for that Norman Rockwell household.
Is that what was going on?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Know. I mean, we can bash on the 50s, I guess. I don't know, but there may be some good things. I don't know what happened there. But that is one of the low points, which, by the way, in the late 80s, it got close to that again.
Yeah. Well, that's
the very late 80s.
That's when designer drugs kicked in too, probably.
Well,
so
there you go. But since then, it's remained remarkably flat. I mean, to me, that's pretty interesting. They've got great statistics on age group. Of course, if you're between the age of 35 and 54, 66% use alcohol there. It was fascinating on the annual household income, though. They even broke it down to that. Apparently, the rich people or the rich households, if you have a household making $100,000 or more, 79% are consuming alcohol. See, that's a little bit, I don't know. That's what I thought was a little closer to reality. But if your household makes less than $40,000 a year, 53%. So it doesn't really matter if you're religious.
No. The weekly ones are around 50%. Apparently, beyond that, it's about the same. It goes in the 60s if you don't attend quite as often. So
that's right.
I found that interesting.
Yep. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on here was liquors. Kind of when you look at, I thought it was interesting. U.S. drinking preferences. Beer obviously still remains strong. The highest it was close to 50%. It's right at 37% now as a preferred alcoholic beverage. But liquor has seen quite a spike, I would say, in the last, it look like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoop. And now liquor is higher than wine. So liquor is the number 2, back to your point about bourbon and stuff like that. And wine is number 3 as preferred alcohol beverage. So there you go. That's our relationship with alcohol.
There you go.
Only about 60% of people drinking. Yeah. Most are drinking beer, but liquor's doing better.
I do find it interesting too. They did have a little graph here of like non-drinkers' reasons for not imbibing, and 24% said no reason, don't want to.
Yeah.
Don't want it to have no desire.
Right.
Basic. And then after that, don't care for it. Unhealthy, you get to unhealthy, not good for body, around 14%. Afraid of consequences, like, past bad experiences.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what you expect. But I do find it interesting. Yeah, there's just, a quarter of people that don't drink basically are just saying, like, I just don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. Yeah.
I'm not interested in it.
Yeah, it's great.
Good for
awesome.
you. I mean, that's,
absolutely.
there's nothing wrong with that either. So, there's nothing wrong with it in moderation. There's nothing wrong with having nothing to do with it either. So.
Yeah. And they're going and buying, they're just stopping off at a dispensary anyway. So.
There you go. But hey, if you do want to imbibe, come to Cincinnati. We got
yes, we got a lot of beer.
Come to Cincinnati. We got plenty of beer, and go a little south, and you can get some really nice bourbon too.
There it is.
We'll hook you up whichever way you want to go around here. All right.
What's your topic next, my friend?
So next up here, we've got a quick little article from The Guardian about which U.S. job will shrink the most in the next decade.
Oh.
This is kind of a no-brainer, I suppose. Like this was one of these articles. I'm like, should I even bother talking about this?
Specific job?
They did a little bit of research and figured out, and the specific job that they thought was going to be in the biggest decline by 2031 is cashiers.
Oh, well, there you go.
Again, not super surprising.
But we know this in our industry.
Exactly. It says it's expected that 335,000 fewer jobs will be available to people working as cashiers. Obviously, automation, AI, big part of what's
self-checkout
that charge. Also noted that just a lot of people these are just roles that people just kind of drift in and out of quickly and easily anyway. But yes, again, there's going to be less reason for people to be a cashier. One of these things where like, I don't necessarily think this is a terrible thing. I don't think we're talking about like we're just going to cut a whole bunch of people's jobs out from under their feet necessarily. I think it's just going to be that there's just not going to be as much need. And those people that traditionally would have been cashiers at a retail establishment or a restaurant or whatever it is are just going to have other jobs there instead.
Yeah.
And a lot of that will be left up to automation. I don't think it's like, we're just going to literally just cut 335,000 jobs out of the economy.
Right.
I think it's just more of just like that's just not a role that people are going to necessarily need anymore.
Well, and it used to be a career, believe it or not. You could make a living doing that.
Well, I think like grocery stores. I mean,
for sure.
It used to be, especially a lot of like elderly folks or young folks, this is their first job. Like their job is just to be there all day long and just ring up the goods and take the money, and that was it.
What I don't like about that is the customer service aspect of it, because I do remember back in the day when my wife wasn't working, she would, going to the grocery store is a weekly thing, and she got to know everybody in the grocery store, including the cashiers.
Right.
And they had great relationships, but it was a part of the whole. I mean, I think you talk to her, she longs for those days where she would know the people, all the people. We go to our grocery store now, and it's like, we don't know anybody there, kind of a thing. So that has changed. In this article, though, if I could pivot, there were some things in here that were a little disheartening to me. Other jobs that are going to disappear quickly. I mean, obviously, assemblers and fabricators, 115,000.
A lot of robotics going
there. I get that.
Yeah.
I totally get that. But again, there's a shrinking of some entry-level jobs, things of that nature. Telemarketers, I get it. A lot less fewer.
Are we too upset about that one?
but here's the one.
Although telemarketers do have their place when used effectively and not for spammy reasons.
No doubt. But here's one that just makes me pause. Farmers and ranchers down 24,000. That's one of those things that. Okay, if Armageddon comes and we don't have people that know how to farm and ranch and do these basic things,
I know everybody started their backyard garden, but that doesn't make you a farmer,
right? There's maybe only one farmer on our staff, Sam, that does she'll get into canning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to me that's getting a little closer.
So when the apocalypse comes, Sam, we're coming to your house.
Oh yeah, we're eating all the pickles, and no doubt.
I hope you got enough to feed us.
So anyway, I was like, I was disappointed to see that one.
Yeah, postal service workers was another one too that they had down quite a bit at last on that list, which again, not particularly shocking or surprising there. So I mean, I hope that when we talk about this, jobs that will shrink, we're also opening up new potential avenues. When you mentioned like assemblers and fabricators, I this was some years ago, and in my last job, I visited a company that made food service equipment, and they're one of the top ones in the country, and they had kind of started pivoting their business to using a lot of robotics. So we got to tour their factory, and there's really cool places where just like a pan, a food pan that you might use like on a deli spread or something like that, or on a buffet spread or whatever in a restaurant or in a cafeteria or something. They very cool machine that just lifted up a flat sheet of paper and like just punched out the depth of it or whatever, and and then put it down to move on to the next place. And they made a very strong point out of telling, this again was like 6-7 years ago, or more like 8-9 years ago, I guess at this point, of telling us like, hey, when we installed these these robots and this new types of manufacturing, we made a point out of not losing any jobs because of it. So the people who would normally have been doing that stuff manually in the past are either doing one of a couple things. There's either someone who has now been trained to work with the robots themselves, like help manage and maintain the robots.
Yep, right.
Or, and a lot of it too, because they took a lot of pride in the design work of their products, that, you have the fabricating, robot that's, punching stuff out and creating the shape of everything. But then it's going to an actual person who's doing like a little bit of
assembly
additional
or whatnot.
edging or whatever to sand the edges off and make it look smooth and nice or whatever, do a little polishing, do a little QAing or something. So, they were very specific about, hey, we want to make sure that even though we've replaced that particular job with a robot and some kind of automation, we took those people and found other places for them within our business to still make our business even better. And I hope that more, I know there are companies that won't. I know there are companies that will say, hey, now that we can do this with robotics, with automation, we just don't need these people anymore. Less people we have to pay.
Yeah.
But hopefully more people, more companies will realize like, hey, this means we can pivot and still, keep our workforce size, but now find other better ways to use them to make us even more efficient, better at what we do, better products, better for our customers.
Yeah, which I think will happen.
I think so too.
Because there's such a labor
yes.
shortage to begin with. So.
Yes, exactly. I think ultimately that's where we will end up.
Yeah. And well, getting into that, one of those things that may enable some of that, unfortunately, is quantum computing.
That's right.
So anytime I see a headline on quantum computing, I'm always like, ooh, at least it's going to pique my interest a little bit. So the headline is IBM quantum computer reaches key milestone. Now, I'm going to admit that I'm going to talk about a couple things here that really make me feel dumb. And I'm going to highlight that here. But apparently, one of the takeaways, quantum computing, a little farther away than we thought. It's not right around the corner. They're talking like 5 to 10 years before this even becomes like maybe we would start to using it. But here's what really made me kind of scratch my head on this one. Apparently, it's really noisy. Quantum computing is noisy, and that is a problem. So let me
I get annoyed when my fan spins up on my back.
Yes. Well, that's part of it. Okay, you think that's funny, but here we go. One key, IBM. One key to seeming advantage of IBM's quantum computing is quantum error mitigation. So you can either try to mitigate errors or you can try to correct them. Well, what they tried to do, their quantum computing is now in error mitigation. But now, the way they do this now, a novel technique for dealing with noise. Who knew quantum computing actually creates noise? It's literally a very noisy thing. Yes, but also in the circuitry that you can't hear. It's a noisy thing to do. So what did they do to help with the mitigation of errors? They actually increased more noise into the quantum circuitry to make it noisier, and that in turn made less accurate answers and then extrapolated backwards to estimate the answer the computer would have gotten if there were no noise. So here, I know, I just lost myself as well on that. But what you have is a noisy process. They're introducing more noise into it so that they can extrapolate through whatever, backward estimating is what they call it, to answer whether it's fascinating stuff that is way over my head. But apparently, who knew? The problem of noise comes about because IBM's qubits are sensitive superconducting circuits. So these are these circuits that are zipping along here that represents the zeros and ones of binary computation. When qubits are entangled for a calculation, unavoidable annoyances, I love these phrases, such as heat and vibration can alter the entanglement and introduce the errors. That's the issue here. So noise can be, yes, audible, but also heat, vibration. It's really anything that gets in the middle of these circuits doing what they're doing. So they're just adding more noise and then kind of backing that back out afterwards. I don't know. Yeah. It's fascinating. But it's like, is this stuff real? Sometimes you just sit back and you just think to yourself, okay, so quantum computing is going to be
Are you just making up words?
Exactly. It's going to be this fascinating thing that's going to end, it'll just be able to compute any problem that we have
in an
instantaneously.
Yeah.
Really? Is that how this gets done, though, through this kind of stuff? So
I feel
really
like it's
heady
time,
stuff.
I think it's time to replace the phrase, it's not rocket science, with it's not quantum computing.
Yes, there.
Because I think I understand rocket science better than I understand this.
Well, at this point, yes. But see, look at the incremental growth that human species is going through. I mean, rocket science 60 years ago, nobody would have understood. No, we totally get that.
We're beyond
trajectory and how it happens. Yeah. Exactly. Quantum computing still got me baffled, dude.
Whole new
still
realm
got me
here.
baffled. Yeah. But, boy, I'm interested. Is IBM even on your next topic? Did they rank as far as...
I believe.
Let's take a look here. What do you got?
I don't
What's your
remember.
next topic?
We'll find out. All right. So next up here, we've got a listing of brand reputations ranking the best and worst in 2023.
Oh, okay.
This is,
2023.
This is from Visual Capitalist.
Okay.
So basically they did, it's this, again, as always, we always put the links and stuff in the show notes. Highly recommend you check out this particular.
I love their stuff. Visual Capitalist.
Yeah.
They have good stuff.
You're going to want to check out this kind of format they set up here. Is they created this like giant ring with, brand reputations from best to worst.
I like it.
And so we'll start with the good stuff at the top here. So I'm going to give you the brands that ranked in the excellent category for a score here, which is basically looks like a score of 80 or higher on a scale of up to 100 basically.
Okay, so these are brands we like.
Yes,
good
so
reputations.
These are the brands with great reputations. I'll start at the bottom of the excellent, which is 3M. You've got 3M, Apple, USAA, Amazon. Kind of surprised that one ranked as high as
Amazon, really? Okay.
I know we all use Amazon, but I feel like the reputation necessarily isn't great. But
some kinks in the armor there.
Samsung, Toyota, Chick-fil-A, Trader Joe's, John Deere, Costco, and Patagonia is at the top.
What, Patagonia?
Costco, I believe.
Costco for sure.
If you are a Costco person, you just love Costco. That's all there is to it.
Well, it's a good brand. It's
it
a great
really
store,
is.
well run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Patagonia, I've never had anything Patagonia. I don't buy from Patagonia. I don't know anything about them.
Yeah,
but apparently they have a very high brand reputation.
Well,
so
it's high-end stuff too. That is not cheap stuff.
They scored an 83.5 out of 100.
You know what it is? Probably the environmental stuff there. I think that's some of the environment because they're very in that realm.
That's probably
very
a big part
conscious
of
of that.
Yeah.
I think people
I'm
buy the
assuming
brand
they make
because of
high quality products too. That people
I'm
just
assuming
really enjoy.
I don't own a single piece of it.
We also know that brand reputation has a lot to do with exactly with people's feeling about the brand and what they what they bring to their life, what they bring to the world. That can have a lot to do with this kind of stuff too.
Look at that legacy brand though of John Deere.
Yeah, I found that fascinating. That's still so high up on the list. I mean, I guess I get it. I think if for people who use John Deere, I've never heard anyone say anything bad about them.
No, right.
You see people using old John Deere tractors that they've been using potentially for decades, still out there trucking away with them. So I guess I get it. It's just not one I would have thought of at all. I think all the other ones on this list to some extent make sense. And they're still
sure. Like Chick-fil-A. I mean, come on.
There's still brands that are on top of a lot of people's. Again, Patagonia seemed like the outlier a bit because it's not one I think people talk about as much.
Right.
But the other ones kind of made sense. Now, if we shift to the bottom of the list, and I'm just gonna put this out there with no commentary, but the very bottom one on the list is Trump. The Trump brand.
Oh, the Trump brand
came up as very last thing on the list. The only one that scored is very poor at a 52.9 ranking. The rest of the ones that scored poor, which means basically looks like below 65 ranking.
Yeah.
Let's see. So going from
what we got here?
Best of those to worst, BP. I don't even know what this next one is here. I can barely even see the little logo there. I got nothing on that one. It's a little logo that I can't read, so I don't know. My eyesight sucks, so I can't quite zoom in on that one. TikTok is up there, or down there, I should say. Spirit Airlines, Meta, Twitter/X now, Fox, and FTX, which that one makes total sense at this point. I think if you had done this maybe a year earlier, FTX might have probably landed somewhere more of like in the middle or slightly lower tier. But now it's definitely much further down on that list than it was before. So those are the best and worst.
So three of them are like late new brands, social media type. I guess the social companies don't get a lot of respect. A couple medias in there. That's interesting. And FTX, of course.
Yeah, and of course, an oil company. Go figure.
Well, right.
That an oil company be down there. So.
Which is like a message, right? There's things that they can do. I wonder where their competitors show up here.
I know,
like any of the other ones, kind of in the middle.
ExxonMobil is like is at the top of the fair.
Yeah, Shell's kind of in the middle.
Not a lot further, but a little bit further along. So some of the others ranked a little bit better. I don't think you're going to see any of them in the the high marks, like when I look over on the left side of this list here, of this sphere that they put together here, you're mostly seeing more like retail brands, well-known technology brands. There's not any of the ones in that side that I think are like mega surprising. You're gonna look at this and you're probably gonna feel like, okay, I get it.
Let's riff on this a little bit. Top movers. So the brands that have moved the most to the positive side. We got Nike, American Express,
which is an interesting one. Yeah.
Costco, we've already talked about that, and Chick-fil-A. Boom, huge,
and GM,
and GM for whatever reason. Now the biggest losers, top movers downward. Taco Bell.
Man, what a Taco Bell! Is it because they they didn't get rid of breakfast, but like breakfast has became like very.
Oh, I thought it was maybe they got rid of the dog, but that was a long time ago. The little Chihuahua.
Yeah, that's been some time ago.
Netflix lost. Target lost.
With Netflix, Target, I'm kind of surprised by. I don't know. I guess I don't hear a lot about Target, but I feel like most people tend to like Target.
They've had a couple issues lately, around and Chrysler. And then Tesla, huge mover down.
That one doesn't particularly shock me either. I guess
is that just the man at the top and how polarizing he is? I think that's all it can be.
Well, what that and there's just been that, and I think there's also been some controversy around the design and longevity of their vehicles.
I don't know that would. I don't know that would kill them in the
but yes,
reputation.
I suspect it's mostly about Musk because it's probably the primary driver of that particular one. So
interesting stuff.
Yes, interesting list of brands. So again, check out that in the show notes. You're going to want to see that. Check out any of the stuff that we have talked about today. We ran through a nice little gamut of different stories.
Yes.
And of course, as always, if you like some of these stuff we've talked about, if you have Tech Bytes topics.
If they have a tech beef, how do they even tell us?
Well, you got to tell us because we don't know. We'd love to talk about this stuff. If
that's
there's
true.
like, hey, I'd really like for you guys to talk about this particular story. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
How about an invitation? Even if you have a tech beef, we can bring you on and talk about your tech beef or your tech
if you're willing to come on the show, we'll happily send you out a link, bring you on, chat about it for a few minutes.
You got one.
So to do that, you got to talk to us, though. And there's a few ways you can talk to us. First of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, like the episode, go down to below the episode and leave us a comment. You can leave a comment and tell us what you want to talk about or hear about on the show. Or
easy to do.
Your thoughts on some of these topics we've discussed today. You can also reach out to us. We always have a link in the show notes where we ask for topic submissions and ideas of stuff you want to see and hear about on the show. Again, if maybe you can't think of like a topic for a particular guest or something in the channel that you want to hear about, maybe you've got a cool Tech Byte article though. Send it to us.
That's right.
Because Dean and I are always like just building our list that, when we decide to do one of these episodes, we throw them at each other and like, all right, let's see which one of these
what we got. Yeah.
we want to do.
Put yours in the mix.
Yeah, throw yours in the mix. And again, we'll give you credit for it at the very least, but if you want to come on and talk about it with us, we're happy to do that too. So go to that link in the show notes, leave us any of those ideas. Just for doing it, we'll send you a TEConnect podcast t-shirt just for submitting an idea to us. You can also at any time also reach out to us on that platform from that guy that, is bringing down the stock of Tesla potentially. You can find us on X/Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap things up with what's TEConnecting with you.
Yes.
Basically just another excuse to talk about another topic we feel like chatting about. All right, Dean, what's TEConnecting with you?
Well, I got two of them.
Okay.
This whole being human thing is kind of tricky, especially for self-driving cars. Because the company Cruise, which is the autonomous taxis that are driving around in San Francisco.
Which they have launched them.
Yes, they have. Oh, yeah.
And I have a feeling you're going to go the same place with this, the same story that I've heard about this. But go on, let's see.
Well, all I'm saying, so they cut their fleet by 50% after an incident involving a fire truck recently, just weeks after the San Francisco city voted to allow them to have more operating cars. So apparently, what's going on here? Is this what you heard?
No, this is something else. But
okay,
I'll tell you mine too.
Got it. So what happened here is that, and actually, when you think about it, the self-driving car really didn't do an issue. Meaning, so the incident that happened is the car was going through a green light. It entered the intersection, and a fire truck that was running a red light because they can. Right? They're allowed to do that. Hit the car. Nobody was injured or anything like that. But that's why I'm saying this whole being human thing is tricky because there's so many intricacies in driving a car.
Something else you have to teach them.
It is fascinating. Yeah. When you really get down to the granularity, I mean, we all just take it as like it's like whatever. It's breathing. It's as easy as breathing. We just hop in a car and go.
Yeah.
But our little brain is actually doing some fascinating stuff that's really hard to teach.
We all know. So anyway, there's sirens, there's lights. I need to stop.
Exactly. That's just one of those things that's
Green
hard to
light
program.
Or no, I'm stopping.
I mean, it gets worse. These crews. When you see some of the issues that people have posted on social, where apparently sometimes these cars congregate into an area and it'll just jam up an entire street because they're waiting for their next call or whatnot. Where does it go?
Okay.
Well, it's just sitting on a street, and so you've got like people that are taking videos of like 6 cruise cars lined up along the street, and nobody else can get down the street because of all these things.
Interesting.
Going back to the fire thing, apparently these things are really known for getting in the way of emergency vehicles. Like even once, like if there's one incident where there was a fire happening, the fire trucks had rolled up, unrolled all their stuff and stuff like that, but this cruise car started trying to get through. It's trying to roll over the pipes or the hoses and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah,
it's like that Amazon driver that delivered a package during a police standoff.
Yeah. And here's the job I do not want to have. Apparently, Cruise feels compelled to tweet about any incident that any of their vehicles ever have to back the public down, I guess, off the ledge. So can you imagine?
Like
2 o'clock in the morning, and now you got to craft something that goes on. Everybody's okay. It's, oh my God, I don't want that job.
Yeah, that's a crisis management.
So what did you hear about
once.
These guys?
Well, I'll keep this succinct because I didn't really dive too far into the article, but apparently people were already having sex in the cruise taxis.
No, shocker.
Doesn't take long. I'm not surprised by this at all.
Yeah.
If people can find an opportunity to do something like that,
well, why not?
With a new technology, they're going to do it.
It's like a bucket list item. Yeah, there you go. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing an article, seeing a pop-up article about these taxis officially going live and being in action. And I no lie, it was not even a week later that I saw that headline pop up. I'm that checks out.
Yeah, it's about
that probably happened on night 1 for all we know, So
absolutely. Here's my second one real quick. The iconic Brady Bunch home went up for sale recently. Did you know this?
I've kind of thought it had been before.
But I'm going to give you 2 statistics on this, and then I got a question for you. Number 1, how big of a house do you think it was?
Probably not as big as you would think, because TV will make things look bigger than they are.
Okay, so what do you think an average home has? Like 2,500 square feet?
Yeah,
something that?
I'd say.
The Brady Bunch home actually has 5,100 square feet.
Now that I think about it, on the flip side of it, yes, in order to have a television production, you have to have a much bigger.
I'm talking the home the one they modeled it after. Like the home.
Right.
You see the outside shots of and the establishing shots. That's actually 5,100 square feet. Well, how much do you think that's going for? It's a 5-bedroom, by the way. 5 bath.
Let's say
it's in Studio City, California.
10 million?
5.5 million. Okay, so now here's my question. Did you watch the Brady Bunch at all growing up?
Somewhat.
A little bit? You're aware of it?
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like that was middle-class living. Right, the Brady Bunch was like middle class.
Yeah, maybe upper middle class.
Well, that's a bill of goods then, because who in the middle class lives in a 5,100 square foot home in California that costs $5.5 million?
That's a good point.
Dude, we were sold a bill of goods. That ain't middle America right there.
Do we know what Mr. and Mrs. Brady? Well, Mrs. Brady was just a homemaker.
He was an
Right?
architect.
So, that's right. Yeah.
Or whatever, right? He had a studio or something like that.
Potentially good money. Good money in that. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I don't know.
and I guarantee you,
I don't have a 5,100.
What was the maid's name? Alice? Was it Alice?
Alice
was probably
the maid.
Alice was probably.
So maybe I was the wrong one. I shouldn't have assumed that was Middle America because they had a maid. I mean, come on.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's a fair. I'm reevaluating my life as I speak.
I consider myself middle class at this point in my life. I don't have a maid.
You don't have Alice.
My wife would like for us to have someone to come in and clean the house at least, but we don't have that. Certainly not a maid that's there every single day managing the kids. So.
There's my beef. Anyway, what's TEConnecting with you?
Marsha. Okay. So I have a little bit of a beef here,
okay.
A tech beef.
Yes.
I mentioned recently my son started kindergarten.
Yes.
Which means I've had to deal with a whole new world of, public schools
yes.
and technology around that. Now, the caveat here is One, I acknowledge like schools do not get funded nearly as well as they should.
Okay.
For as much taxes as we do pay towards schools, yet still they seem shockingly underfunded. I know teachers have to take on a lot of the burden of handling this kind of stuff themselves.
Yes.
And there's
being said,
there's been some cool things they've done, but I've not been very impressed. And my wife keeps telling me like, you need to get over this and deal with the technology gaps and issues with this school. And I'm like, all right, fine. So it started off with the first night we went in for like, I don't know, some kind of like kinder camp thing or whatever to get acclimated. And like, they had tables set up and they're giving you handouts and stuff. And like, make sure you sign up for this. Make sure you've got your kid registered for this thing. Go to here to fill out this form. Well, my favorite thing is one of the pieces of paper that I got that when I got home, I looked at it and it said, make sure that this form has been filled out for your kid to participate in this or to do this or to make sure that, they're involved in this. Oh, right. I know. It was the kinder camp. Actually, this was before that. This was like, hey, to make sure, because they had an open registration night to bring in your registration papers. We took the paperwork in, and they're like, hey, do this to sign up for kinder camp. Great. It's like, click this link.
Yeah.
And it just says this link, and it's hyperlinked on a piece of paper.
Yes.
I'm sitting there at home with my wife and going, nothing's happening, dear. I'm tapping that piece of paper.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can't click on this link. And I literally like reached out to a few people trying to like, get an answer about this. No one responded to me at all. And finally, like 2 months later, there was like an email that got sent out or whatever saying like, click here to sign up for kinder camp. I'm like, all right, great. So that was the first thing that kind of like set me off a little bit. I'm like, this is what I'm in for.
Yes.
Going further down the rabbit hole, like, they use an app that they use for communication, with the school and with, between teachers and parents and stuff. It's an awful app. It's absolutely atrocious. It's one of those things, you open the app, like you'll get a push notification. If you open the app, you got to wait for about 5 minutes before the app refreshes to let you see. And in that time, I just go to my email where a copy has been sent already there too.
Yes.
That's another thing is sometimes a notification will go out where I will get 3 different emails, a text notification, a phone call, and a push notification through that app as well.
You're getting it on all bases.
All saying the same thing, and only one of them is actually useful and usable by me.
Yes.
There's an app that they created apparently for the buses so that you can see when your kid's bus
and where it
has
is
approached. Like you can set up zones. Took me about a week and a half to get logged into that.
Okay.
I asked them like, hey, how do I get into this? They're like, well, use your kid's student ID, and they gave me the ID.
Are we sure you're not the problem here?
I promise you, it ain't me. Finally got that to work, and I will say that app is very handy because it's nice for if I'm at home, if I'm working or whatever, and the app pings or whatever and tells me like that it's I've set it up so that when the bus turns into the beginning of the neighborhood,
approaching,
and I know that I've got like 5-10 minutes before they get to my street. I'm like, all right, great. I have this way I don't have to go sit out and wait at the bus stop. So there's good stuff there. I do appreciate also they have like a thing you can go to like set up the payment for school lunch. So you can just go
we do
set
that all
up
the time.
Recurring payments or whatever, and he can go and get his lunch, that kind of stuff. I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that didn't exist when we were kids that I think is amazing. So this is a beef with a little bit of like, this is pretty cool built into it too. And a heavy dose of empathy for what they're dealing with. But and now that we've, we're a few weeks into the school year. I'm like, all right, I've understood and mastered most of this stuff and figured it out. I figured out where my pain points are. I figured out what I have to do. I have
a question. So. Does he have a Chromie yet?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So all the kids love the Chromie.
He hasn't brought it home yet, but he came home from school and he's yelling about his Chromie. And my wife's like, "What is he talking about?" Well, he's talking about a Chromebook. Like
yes, that's it.
Their computers they give them.
That's his world.
Yeah. He's very excited about that because he's got a Fire tablet, kids Fire HD tablet he's been using for years now. But this is his first because he's always been that kid who would come back if I'm in the office or whatever at home and come back to the office and be like, "Daddy, can I type some stuff on your computer?"
Right.
No.
Don't touch it. He's got his own Chromie.
Now he's got his own.
He'll be just fine. He'll be just fine.
Yeah. He'll master all this stuff, and eventually I'll get left behind, and he'll be like, "Dad, let me show you how to do this."
But here's the good news, because my daughter's 11. She's like, "Dad, I think I finally need my own computer, right?" Kind of a thing, because the one she has really old, never really even uses it. I'm like, "Cool. What about it?" "Oh, I want a Chromie." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Actually, let's go with that because they're like $200. Yes.
Yeah, say nice, simple, and cheap. Yeah, maybe it's not our love of Macs there. Maybe
that's right. But still, that's right. Yeah.
All right, that's what's TEConnecting with us, and that is our Tech Bytes for today. It is time for us to unplug. Until next time, make sure your job's not shrinking anytime soon. Come to the best beer city.
Go have a beer.
What we think is the best beer city in the world. Compare us with Pittsburgh if you like, and I think we'll show you what's better.
Yeah.
And as always, please stay connected. The TEConnect podcast is brought to you by Elo. Elo is expanding their versatile line of commercial solutions, adding Linux alongside their market-leading Windows and Android-enabled hardware. I mean, Elo's just out there like, hey, look, there's a need for this.
Yeah.
Why not expand?
Oh, we need a Linux version? No problem.
We'll drop that in
Hold
there.
my beer.
Hold my OS beer. Elo's Linux-based platform offers an expansive lineup across sizes and form factors, Linux device drivers, uniform SDKs, and a constantly growing set of tools. Linux is now available on Elo's 10, 15, and 22-inch iSeries displays and the Elo backpack for digital signage, self-service kiosk, POS, KDS, and more. To learn more about Elo's Linux offerings, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar Elo team. TEConnect podcast is also brought to you by Zebra. Increasingly, healthcare providers are leveraging technology and automation to ease the strain on a system that's been put to the test in recent years. Why is that? Did something happen? Did you miss something? I don't know. Clinical mobility has shown great promise to create workflow efficiencies, maximize a provider's limited resources, and ultimately improve the quality of patient care. Zebra's 2022 Hospital Vision study states that providers are ramping up clinical mobility by equipping bedside nurses with mobile devices and connecting data from equipment, supplies, and health information systems. Wow. All about that connectivity.
Yes,
all about that having access in the palm of your hand. That's good stuff in any industry, but definitely in healthcare. But too many organizations in the public and private sectors are equipping their employees with consumer-grade mobile devices.
There it is.
Boo!
Yep, boo.
That aren't designed and configured to deliver the appropriate levels of security, functionality, and reliability for mission-critical applications such as healthcare. As a VAR, it's critical to know how consumer and enterprise-grade devices compare in these key areas and to be able to communicate the differences to your customers. Zebra's here to help with an ebook to help you make a case for purpose-built healthcare devices.
There you go.
Check out the link in the show notes to request your copy.